Ross Dellinger at Yahoo has done a really good job covering the whole transformational side of college football and realignment here and changing the playoff there. Ross Dellinger, along the way, has picked up a lot of really good sources, and some of them are willing to go on the record, and they did just that yesterday. Over at Yahoo Sports, Dellinger had a really lengthy feature on how we got where we got. And you know what? It was eye-opening because it's the first time that I have seen Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, Tony Petiti, Big Ten commissioner, go on the record saying what many, including myself, believed to be the case. And that is a few months ago, if you'll remember, earlier this year, when we had the whole line in the sand moment. And remember, they were pushing against the self-imposed deadline of reshaping the college football playoff and agreeing to a new structure. And they got it done. The 11th hour, got it done just in the nick of time. At the time, I remember doing a couple of shows. I remember doing a couple of segments, and some folks called BS on it when I said, this is very real. The threat of the SEC and the Big Ten walking away are very real. I had heard that. I had been told that. Well, yesterday in this feature, you didn't have to worry about hearsay. You didn't have to worry about anonymous sourcing. Dellinger got Sankey and Petiti on the record in paraphrased manner saying, yeah, we were going to walk away. They were never bluffing about that. I think other people in the room realized they were never bluffing about it. And so, look, I know my audience, and I know you guys have a lot of thoughts on whether Greg Sankey's approach is good for the overall state of the game, or Tony Petiti's approach, or a major network's approach. I know you guys have many different feelings on that. You tell me every day. I tell you, I've got feelings on it as well. You know where I stand. I stand on wanting to forward what is for the greater good of college football and college athletics. And my gripe is I don't know that there are a whole lot of other people in the room right now doing that. So more on that in a second. But I do also get the other side. So we haven't had either of those guys on this show. They're welcome. But we haven't had either of those conference commissioners on this show. But I'm sure if we had Greg Sankey on the show, he would present 15 different angles that maybe you've never thought of, maybe I've never thought of, that go into the decisions he makes for the SEC and why they make sense and why he could defend his position. Tony Petiti, same way. I don't doubt that. I also don't doubt that the people who complain that this isn't for the greater good of college football have a valid complaint, because I'm among you. I'm with you. I look at the SEC getting bigger, better, stronger, and I say that's wonderful for them, but is it wonderful for the sport overall? And my answer oftentimes is no. And again, everything I'm saying about the SEC, you can copy and paste it for the Big Ten. And I look at how in flux a lot of those conferences have been. Dellinger was really good at pointing out in this feature of his, the Pac-12, which doesn't exist anymore for all intents and purposes, the Big Ten and the ACC, they had this alliance for like 30 seconds, and those commissioners aren't even there anymore. So the people who were making the decisions weren't even permanent, like they were temporary. I mean, remember Kevin Warren at one point was running things in the Big Ten, wanted to cancel a football season, wanted to enter into an alliance, wanted to do all these things, and he's not even there anymore. And yet the decisions that were made at the time, back in 2022, were huge inflection points. So in 2022, if you don't know, I encourage you again to go read this thing. I'm at the hotel. It's the JW Marriott. It's downtown Indianapolis. It's the morning of the national championship game, Georgia versus Alabama. That's what you were focused on. That's what all of us should have been focused on. Nope. There was this big meeting down in the lobby. I remember walking by the room, and I remember watching the horde of reporters standing out there trying to get anything they could from guys walking in and anything they could from guys walking out. And I'm like, hey, man, it's the national championship today. I'm not worried about that stuff. A lot of people were, though. That's fine. It led to reporting like this, so that's good. But that afternoon, that morning actually, they tried to come to a consensus on what the future of the playoff was going to look like. The ACC had some sticking points. The Pac-12 had some sticking points. The Big Ten had some sticking points. And it got contentious, and some folks got really angry, and they walked away that morning having not arrived at an agreement. That was the breaking point. For the SEC, especially, that was the breaking point, and you can tell from that point on, Greg Sankey and the SEC kind of had an attitude of, screw it, we're going to look out for our best interest, and whatever happens to the rest of you, if you die, you die. That was basically the attitude moving forward. My point is, I get having that stance as well. So there are a lot of different stances people have here, a lot of different attitudes. I understand all of it. Here's what I circle back around to, because that can be confusing. Or it could make you sound like a fence rider. Or it makes you sound like you're not taking a stand. Here's the stand I take. Same one as I've always taken. Who's looking out for the best interest of college football? Because in the NFL, Jerry Jones looks out for the best interest of Dallas Cowboys. Like Robert Kraft is looking out for the New England Patriots, but there is a centralized authority and governance structure where at the end of the day, they have to act in the overall best interest of the National Football League. Checks, balances, etc. Structure, rules, etc. We don't have that. The letters NFL mean something. The letters CFB do not. CFB is a day of the week. It's Saturday afternoon. It's an idea. It's a fun thing. It's a sport, but it's not a brick and mortar office. You can't go knock on the door. It doesn't mean anything. It's not an entity. And therefore, we're left to have basically a bunch of little fiefdoms. We had Joe Tessitore on the show one time, and he said, the closest comp that I have is boxing. Because boxing, and he covers boxing a lot, and he pointed out, accurately so, in boxing, everyone's looking out for themselves. There's no centralized governance structure. There are all these different title belts. You got guys holding 13 belts at one time. No one really knows who is running things, because no one is. No one knows who's running things in college football, college athletics, because no one is. And so in the interim, we got survival of the fittest. We've got kind of the laws of the jungle prevailing. That's the shame of it all. The shame of it all is, I don't care if you can defend your position. I don't have to like it. And I don't care if you can defend your position. If it's not in the greater interest of the betterment of college football, ultimately it will fail. Because the SEC, or the Big Ten, is really nothing more than part of what is the greatest sport on the face of the earth to a lot of us, and that's college football. And sure, you'd exist. Sure, you could have walked away. I don't know where you were going. Like, I don't know what the SEC Big Ten world would have looked like, and they didn't either. I'm sure they have some ideas they've sketched on napkins and whatnot, but even they admitted we didn't really know what that was going to look like. We were willing to test the waters, though. You could do that, and your product would be fine. I'd watch it. I have no other choice. I'd watch it. But all you'd do is you'd watch it, and then you'd sit around and you'd tell 13-year-old kids about what the good old days were like. It's the classic Andy scene in The Office. Wish there was a way to realize you're in the good old days before you've left them. It's like we're watching that scene happen in college football. I'm not trying to doom and gloom us. We got a great sport right now, still the best one on the face of the earth. Got a great season coming up. But this was pretty eye-opening. And it also, I should cap this by saying, it's evolutionary. We're in a state of flux right now. This is not past tense. So there's still time for a lot of good to happen as well. There's still time for a lot of smart people, like Mac Brown mentioned about a month ago with us. There's still time for a lot of smart people to elbow their way back in the room, to get their hands on the wheel, and to steer us in the proper direction. And I got every finger I have crossed for that right now.